We were having dinner in my parents' lavish dining room, under the golden glow of the chandelier. Amy had been pushing her food around her plate, barely eating. Her face was pale, and she kept glancing at me with frightened eyes. "Amy, you've barely touched your salmon," my mother remarked. "It's imported, you know." My father lowered his newspaper just enough to give Amy a disapproving look. "And sit up straight. Bentons don't slouch." I watched Amy's shoulders tense. At 19, she'd grown tired of their criticism, but that night was different. She placed her fork down carefully. "I have something to tell everyone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The room fell silent. "I am." Amy's voice cracked. She grabbed my hand under the table. "I'm pregnant." My mother's hand flew to her pearl necklace, clutching it as if she might choke. "What did you just say?" my father asked, his voice dangerously low. "I'm 3 months pregnant." My father's face turned crimson. "Who is the father?" "That scholarship boy? Lucas." Amy nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mother hissed. "You've brought shame to this family. What will everyone say?" "Mother, please," I intervened. "This isn't about what people will say." "Of course it is. Everything is about what people say in our circles, Sophia." My father stood suddenly. "I will not have a pregnant, unwed teenager living under my roof. It's bad enough you threw away Princeton for that community college." "Grandpa, please," Amy sobbed. "Where is this boy? Why isn't he here taking responsibility?" Father demanded. He doesn't want anything to do with it." "With us." Something inside me snapped. I stood up, placing a protective arm around my daughter. "That's enough. Can't you see she's terrified? She needs our support, not your judgment. And you, Sophia. How could you let this happen? After everything we've given you both after James died? This is how you repay us." "This isn't about repayment," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "This is about family." "Family." My father laughed bitterly. "Family upholds standards. Family maintains dignity." "No," I shot back. "Family supports each other, especially when things are difficult." My mother dabbed at her eyes. "There are options, Amy. Discreet options. No one needs to know." Amy looked up, horrified. "You want me to?" "It would be for the best," Mother continued. "After a suitable recovery period, you could resume your studies properly." "She's keeping the baby," I said firmly. "And I'll support whatever decision she makes." My father slammed his fist down. "Then you can both leave. I will not have my reputation tarnished by a teenage pregnancy scandal." "You have until tomorrow to pack your things," he continued, his voice ice cold. "And don't expect any financial support. Not a penny." I stood there, stunned. 20 years of obedience, of meeting their expectations after my husband died, all erased in an instant. "If that's how you feel," I said quietly, "then we'll go." "Sophia, be reasonable," my mother pleaded. "Think about Amy's future. Think about yours." I looked at Amy's tear-stained face, then back at my parents. "I am thinking about our future. A future where we're not controlled by your money or your approval." My father's expression hardened. "You'll regret this, Sophia. The world isn't kind to women without means." I felt a chill, but squared my shoulders. "Perhaps. But we'll face it together." As I led Amy from the dining room, I heard my mother call after us, "Sophia, please don't do this. We can discuss options." But I didn't turn back. For the first time in my life, I was making a choice my parents couldn't control. And despite the fear coursing through me, it felt like I could finally breathe. My hands shook as I packed our belongings. 20 years I'd lived in this house after James died, following their rules, accepting their control in exchange for security. Amy sat on her bed, eyes swollen. "I'm so sorry, Mom. This is all my fault." I sat beside her, taking her hands in mine. "No, sweetie. This isn't your fault. But where will we go? What will we do?" Terror filled her young face. "My friend Noah has an apartment above his design studio. We can stay there until we figure things out. But your job at the boutique." I swallowed hard. My position had been arranged by my father. I had no illusions about keeping it once word got out. "I'll find something else. I've got 20 years of experience in fashion and design." Amy placed a hand over her stomach. "I can drop out of college and get a job." "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "You'll finish your degree. We'll make it work." As I zipped up the last suitcase, I caught sight of my reflection. I barely recognized the woman staring back, determined, afraid, but somehow freer than she'd been in decades. "We'll be okay," I whispered. "We have each other. That's what matters." The grandfather clock chimed midnight as we crept downstairs. I'd left a note on my dressing table, short, dignified, not begging. At the front door, Amy paused, looking back at the grand staircase, the priceless artwork, the life of privilege she'd always known. "Ready?" I asked softly. She nodded, squeezing my hand. "Ready." As we stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. For the first time in my adult life, no one was telling me what to do or how to live. We loaded our suitcases into my car and I took one last look at the mansion that had been both haven and prison. Then I turned the key and drove away from the only security I'd known since James died, toward an uncertain future that was entirely our own. Noah's apartment was tiny but clean. He'd cleared out his spare room for us, insisting we stay as long as needed. Each morning, anxiety knotted my stomach as our savings dwindled. Amy tried to be brave, but morning sickness hit her hard. I'd catch her staring at her phone sometimes, perhaps hoping Lucas might text. I was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found my mother's personal assistant, Caroline. "Mrs. Benton," she said formally. "Your parents have sent me with some documents." "Come in, Caroline." She handed me an envelope. "They're prepared to offer financial assistance on certain conditions." I opened the envelope and pulled out a legal document. My blood ran cold. "They want custody of the baby," I said, voice barely audible. Amy gasped. "What?" "They're offering to set us up in a condo they own. They will pay for your education and prenatal care. After the baby is born, they'll arrange a discreet adoption to a family of their choosing. In return, we sign away all rights." "No," Amy cried. "They can't do this. They believe it's the best solution," Caroline explained. "The child would have opportunities, and Amy could continue her education without complications." Rage surged through me. "We decline their generous offer. My grandchild is not an embarrassment to be hidden away. Mrs. Benton, please reconsider. Your situation here is precarious." "I am thinking about Amy's future," I said firmly. "And her baby's future. Together." Caroline sighed. "There's a second option. If Amy spends her pregnancy at a private facility upstate, they'll allow her to return to college afterward. The adoption would still proceed, but with Amy's involvement in selecting the family." Amy was already shaking her head. "I'm keeping my baby." "Your parents are powerful people," Caroline warned. "They can make life very challenging for you both." "Is that a threat?" I asked quietly. "It's a reality, Mrs. Benton." I opened the door. "Thank you for delivering the message. We'll make our own decisions without their interference." After she left, Amy collapsed in tears. "They want to take my baby away." I held her close. "They won't. I promise." but a chill of fear ran through me. My parents weren't used to being denied what they wanted. 2 days later, I arrived at Elegance, the high-end boutique where I'd worked for 15 years. "Sophia, could you come to my office?" Miranda, the owner, called. Her tone made my stomach drop. "I received a call from Marcus Benton," she said without preamble. "He informed me that you're no longer associated with the Benton family. My personal family matters shouldn't affect my position here." Miranda looked pained. "The Bentons are major investors. Your father made it clear that his continued support depends on certain staffing decisions. He's forcing you to fire me." "I'm sorry, Sophia. He's threatened to pull his social connections too. Most of our clientele comes through those circles." She slid an envelope across the desk. 3 months severance. "And I'd be happy to provide references." I almost laughed. References wouldn't matter when my father was blacklisting me across the city. "When would you like me to leave?" "Today would be best. You can use the back entrance if you prefer." Humiliation burned through me. "No. I'll walk out the front door with my head held high." As I stood to leave, Miranda caught my arm. "Sophia, for what it's worth, I think what they're doing is wrong." I cleared out my desk quickly, leaving behind the nameplate that had proudly displayed Sophia Benton, Executive Manager, for the past 5 years. Outside, I finally allowed myself a moment of despair. My career, financial stability, professional identity, all gone. My father's warning echoed, "The world isn't kind to women without means." I straightened my shoulders. I wouldn't break down in public. There would be other jobs. Money was running dangerously low. I'd applied for dozens of positions but received only rejections. Even retail jobs I was vastly overqualified for fell through after promising interviews. Amy's pregnancy had worsened to hyperemesis gravidarum, requiring hospitalization. The medical bills depleted my savings, and I'd started selling my designer items piece by piece. Returning from another failed interview, I heard retching from the bathroom. Amy was bent over the toilet, pale and sweaty. "How long has this been happening?" I asked, holding her hair back. "All day," she whispered. "I tried calling you. My phone had died during the interview." Guilt washed over me. "We need to call the doctor." Amy shook her head. "We can't afford another hospital visit. Your health and the baby's health come first." After settling her on the sofa, I retreated to the kitchen to hide my panic. I'd pawned my wedding ring yesterday just for groceries. My phone rang with an unknown number. "Mrs. Benton? This is Dr. Martin's office. About Amy's appointment tomorrow." "Yes, Amy's been very sick today. I'm calling about a financial matter. Your payment was declined. You have an outstanding balance of $830 that must be settled before the appointment." I closed my eyes. "Can I make a partial payment now? Dr. Martin requires accounts to be current. Perhaps you could speak with your family about assistance?" The suggestion felt like a slap. "That won't be possible. There are clinic options for patients with financial difficulties." "We'll have the payment tomorrow," I said stiffly, though I had no idea how. After hanging up, I fought back tears. We'd hit rock bottom faster than I'd imagined. A knock came at the door. Noah stood there with soup. "I thought you might need dinner." I heard Amy was sick again. His kindness nearly broke me. "What's wrong?" he asked, studying my face. Everything came pouring out, the rejections, Amy's condition, the mounting bills. Noah listened, then said, "I have about $900 in my emergency fund. It's yours." "No, I can't take your money." "You're not taking it. I'm offering it." He took my hands. "You're not alone, Sophia. I'll pay you back, I promised." "I know. And my friend owns a dress shop in the Arts District. They need someone with experience." Your father's influence probably doesn't extend to the bohemian crowd. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered. Really? She's expecting your call tomorrow. It'll get better, Sophia. You're stronger than you know. That night, as Amy slept, I watched the city lights. The past month had stripped away everything I thought defined me. Yet somehow, I felt a growing determination. My parents had taken much from us, but they couldn't take our dignity or our choices. The baby would come soon. By then, we would be standing on our own feet. Different than I'd imagined, but together. And free. Life had settled into a difficult but manageable routine until the night Amy collapsed. I found her on the bathroom floor, clutching her stomach, blood on the tiles beneath her. Something's wrong, she gasped. It hurt so much. The emergency room was a blur of activity. The doctor approached me with a grave expression. Mrs. Benton? Your daughter has severe preeclampsia. We need to perform an emergency C-section. But she's only 30 weeks, I said, my voice breaking. Waiting puts both lives at risk. Do we have your consent? I nodded numbly. Yes. Please, just save them both. Hours later, I sat beside Amy's hospital bed, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of consciousness. Mom, she whispered. The baby. A little girl, I said. Tiny but fighting hard. The next morning, we visited the NICU. Our baby lay in a transparent box, wrinkled and red, with tubes and wires everywhere. That's my baby? Amy whispered, pressing her hand against the incubator. She's beautiful, I said, meaning it. Lily, Amy decided. I want to name her Lily. I blinked back tears. Lily's had been James's favorite. A hospital administrator pulled me aside about finances. The amount she named for NICU care made my blood run cold. I don't have that money, I admitted. But I'll figure something out. When I returned to Amy's room, I found two people I never expected, my parents. Sophia, Mother said. We came as soon as we heard. How did you know? I asked. We have friends on the hospital board, Father said. News travels. Why are you here? I asked finally. Father cleared his throat. We'd like to help. Under certain conditions. There it was. What conditions? Amy asked, her voice small. We're prepared to cover all expenses, hospital, follow-up care, even a proper apartment for Amy's recovery. And in return? I asked, already knowing. The adoption proceeds as we discussed before. Amy gasped. No. I'm keeping my baby. Amy, be sensible, Mother said. You're 19, with no job, no proper home, and now a premature infant who needs extensive care. Is that the life you want for your child? Before I could respond, the door opened. A man in an expensive suit entered, carrying a briefcase. This is Mr. Reynolds, our family attorney, Father said. He's brought the necessary paperwork. I stared in disbelief. You brought a lawyer to the hospital? Amy just had emergency surgery. Time is of the essence, the lawyer said, pulling out documents. The adoptive family is ready to cover all expenses. What adoptive family? I demanded. The Harisas. Philip is on the hospital board. They've wanted a child for years and can provide everything this baby needs. They can't provide her mother's love, I shot back. The lawyer spread papers on Amy's tray table. If you could just sign here, Amy. Amy looked at the papers in horror, then at me, tears streaming down her face. I can't, I won't, she stammered. Amy, please, Mother urged. This is for the best. The Harisas will allow updates and photos. But she's my baby, Amy sobbed. I felt her moving inside me for months. The lawyer pushed a pen toward her. The sooner we resolve this, the sooner the baby can receive the specialized care she needs. Something in me snapped. All the fear, rage, and resentment of the past months crystallized into a white-hot fury. "Get out," I said, my voice deadly quiet. Father looked up, startled. "Sophia. Get out," I shouted, snatching the papers and throwing them across the room. "How dare you come here and try to steal a child from her mother?" "We're trying to help," Mother protested. "No, you're trying to erase your shame. To control us, like you always have." I was shaking with anger. "Amy and Lily are not your property. They're not social problems to be solved discreetly. Without our help, how will you manage?" Father demanded. "We'll manage because we have something you've never understood, love. Real, unconditional love that doesn't come with contracts or expectations." "You're making a terrible mistake," Father said, his face darkening. "That child will have nothing. She'll have everything that matters." I moved to Amy's side, taking her hand. "She'll know she was wanted. That her mother fought for her. That her family stood together against all odds." Mother looked confused. "But we are her family too." "No," I said firmly. "You surrendered that right when you tried to buy and sell your own flesh and blood. Now leave." After they left, Amy collapsed into sobs. I held her close, my own tears falling freely. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was so scared they might take her." "No one will take her," I promised. "No one." But reality crashed down. We had no money for the hospital bills. No way to provide Lily the care she needed. "What are we going to do, Mom?" Amy asked. I took a deep breath. "As soon as you're both strong enough, we're leaving." "Leaving?" "But Lily needs the NICU. We'll find another hospital. One where your grandfather doesn't sit on the board." That night, I called Noah. His voice, warm with concern, nearly broke me. "I need your help. More than I've ever needed it before." I explained everything: my parents' ultimatum, our financial crisis, my fear they might use their influence to take Lily. "My sister's place in Vermont," he said without hesitation. "She's a nurse at a community hospital with a NICU. She can arrange Lily's transfer for medical reasons." Hope flickered. "Is that possible?" "Leave it to me." 2 days later, everything was in place. Noah's sister had arranged for Lily's transfer, for specialized care. The paperwork was legitimate, the transport team discreet. As we prepared to leave, I felt a strange calm. We were walking away from everything familiar, starting over where no one knew the Benton name. It should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like freedom. Amy sat in her wheelchair, holding the tiny bundle that was Lily, now stable enough for the journey. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, new determination in her eyes. "Ready?" As Noah pushed her wheelchair toward the ambulance, I felt something unexpected: pride. In Amy's courage. In my own strength. In our unwavering love for this tiny being who had changed everything. We had chosen each other. And that was worth more than all my parents' millions. Vermont had become our sanctuary. Noah's sister Maggie had welcomed us into her farmhouse, and Lily had grown into a healthy 1-year-old with bright eyes and a contagious laugh despite her premature birth. In the converted sunroom that served as my studio, I finished a baby romper made from lavender organic cotton, with tiny embroidered lily flowers along the collar, my signature detail. "That's gorgeous, Mom," Amy said from the doorway, Lily balanced on her hip. My granddaughter reached for the colorful garment with chubby hands. As I slipped the romper onto Lily, I marveled at our journey. We'd started with nothing, yet somehow found a new path forward. It began from necessity. Unable to afford store-bought clothes for a premature baby, I'd sewn simple garments for Lily. When other NICU parents asked where they could buy similar items, an idea took root. "The online store got 3 more orders last night," Amy said, opening her laptop. "And that mommy blogger wants samples for her twins." Amy had embraced the business side of what we called of Lily's Bloom, creating our website and social media presence. Her talent for connecting with other young mothers had built our growing customer base. Our small operation specialized in clothing for babies with medical needs, rompers with openings for monitoring cables, easy access designs for babies with mobility issues, and soft fabrics for sensitive skin. Every piece handmade, inspired by Lily's early struggles. Noah called, Amy continued. That store in Soho wants to meet next week about carrying a full collection. I sat down, trying to contain my excitement. Soho? That's a major opportunity. Looking around our makeshift studio, fabric bolts in corners, secondhand sewing machine, sketches pinned to walls, I felt overwhelming pride. This business, born from desperation and love, was actually working. We deserve it, I told Amy, squeezing her hand. This is our success, together. Later, sitting with Maggie on the porch swing, I shared the Soho news. Of course they do, she smiled. Your work is exceptional. I never imagined this, I admitted. When we fled the hospital, I was just trying to keep us afloat. Sometimes life's hardest moments lead us where we're meant to be, she said, looking toward the house. You've built something beautiful here, and I don't just mean the business. 3 days later, an email changed everything. A producer from Arise and Shine wanted to feature our story in a segment on inspirational entrepreneurs. National television. We have to do it, Amy insisted. Think of the exposure. They'll want our whole story, I said hesitantly. The pregnancy, your grandparents, the hospital escape. Amy's expression softened. That's exactly why we should do it. Our story might help other women facing impossible choices. Show them they can choose love over money, family over appearance. I realized how much my daughter had grown. The frightened teenager from that fateful dinner was now a confident young woman with vision. Okay, I agreed. Let's do it. Standing in our hotel room, I gazed at the New York skyline that had once been home. Nervous? Noah asked from behind me. Terrified, I admitted. What if they ask about my parents? Then you'll tell the truth, he said simply. Sophia, do you realize what you've accomplished? In just over a year, you've gone from homeless to running a successful business about to be featured on national television. We've accomplished, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you and Maggie. You would have found a way, he said with certainty. That's who you are. I turned to face him. Thank you. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. His eyes softened. I've always believed in you, Sophia. From the first day you walked into that boutique 20 years ago, demanding to know why your design was altered. I was so self-righteous, I laughed. You were magnificent, he countered. And you still are. Something shifted between us, a possibility that had been growing quietly over the past year. Amy entered with Lily in her arms. She won't settle without saying goodnight to Grandma. Taking my granddaughter, I inhaled her sweet scent. Are you ready for your television debut, little one? Lily gurgled happily, unaware of how her existence had transformed our lives, had given me the courage to start over at 45, to discover talents I'd suppressed for decades. I love you, my little lily flower, I whispered. Everything I do is for you. The studio lights were blinding, the set smaller than expected. Amy sat beside me, Lily on her lap wearing a pale yellow dress with embroidered lilies. Noah watched from behind the cameras, giving us a thumbs up. We're talking with Sophia and Amy Benton, the mother-daughter team behind A Lily's Bloom, the host, Diane, began. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for having us, I managed, heart pounding. Your designs are beautiful, but there's an incredible story behind this business. Could you share that with our viewers? Taking a deep breath, I recounted our journey, the pregnancy announcement, my parents' ultimatum, our struggles, Lily's birth, and the hospital confrontation. I spoke candidly but without bitterness, focusing on rebuilding rather than resentment. So these designs were born from necessity? Diane asked, visibly moved. Absolutely. When Lily was in the NICU, I noticed how difficult it was to dress babies with monitoring equipment. Standard clothing wasn't designed for their needs. I started with simple adaptations, and it grew from there. Amy, you were 19 when you had Lily. How has motherhood changed your plans? Amy smiled, bouncing Lily gently. It changed everything, but not in the ways I feared. I'm still pursuing my business degree online. Lily didn't limit my future, she gave me a clearer purpose for it. Then came the question I'd been dreading. Your parents are Marcus and Vivian Benton, prominent figures in New York society. Have there been any reconciliation attempts? I hesitated, then answered honestly. No. We haven't had contact since the hospital. But this business isn't about proving anything to them. It's about creating something meaningful from our experience, helping other families facing medical challenges with their children. What would you say to women facing impossible choices between family expectations and their own path? Looking at Amy and Lily, then directly into the camera, I responded, the hardest road often leads to the most beautiful destinations. Love, a real, unconditional love, gives you strength you never knew you had. And sometimes, losing everything you thought mattered makes room for what truly does. Tears glistened in Diane's eyes. That's beautiful, Sophia. And clearly, you found that beautiful destination. As the segment ended, something profound settled in my heart. For the first time, I told our story publicly, not with shame or anger, but with pride. Back in the green room, Noah hugged us both. You were amazing. The producer burst in before we could celebrate. Your website just crashed from traffic. The phones are jammed with orders. And a lily's bloom is trending on Twitter. You might want to prepare, she added. This is just the beginning. That evening, celebrating in Noah's apartment, I showed Amy a text from Maggie, a photo of our website showing over 500 orders placed since the broadcast. I think we're going to need a bigger sewing machine, I said. Amy grew serious. Mom, do you ever regret it? Standing up to them that day in the hospital? We could have had an easier start. I looked at my daughter, strong, capable, loving, and at Lily playing on the floor. I thought of our business, born from necessity but growing into something meaningful. And I thought of myself, no longer defined by others' expectations, but by the work of my own hands and the courage of my choices. Not for a single second, I said with absolute certainty. Some things are worth more than money or security. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Amy nodded, understanding in her eyes. Like family. Yes, I agreed, watching Noah join Lily on the floor, making her giggle. Real family. The kind we choose and build together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, in this moment of triumph after so much struggle, I allowed myself to simply feel the joy of it all. We had lost a fortune but found ourselves. And in that exchange, we had gained everything that truly mattered. I was reviewing fabric samples when Amy burst through the door, face pale. Mom, they're here. Downstairs. My parents. After 5 years of silence. What do they want? I asked. They saw us on TV. They want to talk about family matters and their granddaughter. A chill ran through me. You don't have to see them. I know, she said. But maybe we should. To end this, once and for all. Tell them to come up, I said, squaring my shoulders. When they entered, it was like seeing ghosts. They looked older, my father's hair now white, my mother's face more lined. But they still carried themselves with the same aristocratic bearing. Sophia, my mother said, voice catching. You look well. This is a surprise, I replied neutrally. My father cleared his throat. We saw you on that morning program. What do you want? I asked directly. We'd like to discuss an investment opportunity. Your company has growth potential, but you'll need capital to scale. We're prepared to offer funding in exchange for a partnership stake. I almost laughed. After everything, they saw only a business opportunity. Not interested, I said flatly. The Benton name would open doors for your brand, my mother urged. My brand is doing fine without the Benton name. My father's expression hardened. This isn't just about business. It's about family. About rectifying past misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? The word ignited something in me. You threatened to take my grandchild. You tried to force Amy to give up her baby. Those weren't misunderstandings. Those were choices, your choices. We thought we were doing what was best, my mother insisted. No, Amy stepped forward. You were protecting your reputation. You never once asked what I wanted. Where is Lily? My mother asked suddenly. We'd like to see her. She's not here, I said. And I'm not comfortable with that right now. I don't understand your hostility, my father said. We're trying to mend bridges. Something inside me broke open. Do you want to know what I don't understand? How you could disown your own daughter and grandchild. How you could destroy my career. How you could send a lawyer to pressure a teenage girl who had just given birth. 5 years of suppressed anger poured out. You want to be part of our lives? Where were you when Amy was hospitalized? Where were you when Lily spent weeks in the NICU? Where were you when we had to flee because we feared you'd take her from us? Sophia, please, my mother's eyes filled with tears. For 5 years, we've built something from nothing, without your money, without your approval. And now that we're successful, suddenly you want a relationship. My father's face flushed. We've had time to reconsider our position. 5 years, I said bitterly. 5 years to pick up a phone. But nothing, until you saw us on television. My mother reached into her handbag and withdrew a small wooden box. We did try, once, she said quietly. 2 years ago. I recognized my grandmother's music box. Inside was a note expressing regret and asking to meet. It had been returned unopened. We sent it to Vermont, my father explained. But you'd already moved. I stared at the box, momentarily speechless. We had indeed left Maggie's after our business began to grow. I didn't know, I admitted. We handled everything badly, my mother said, suddenly looking her age. Our pride, we lost sight of what mattered. Which is? I challenged. Family, my father said, the word sounding foreign on his lips. Seeing you on that program, successful, happy, despite everything, made us realize how wrong we were. I wanted to hold on to my anger, but something in their faces, a vulnerability I'd never seen before, gave me pause. I can't just forget what happened, I said finally. We don't expect you to, my mother replied. We only ask for a chance to know our granddaughter. To try to make amends. Amy stepped forward. Lily deserves to know her great-grandparents. But on our terms. No control, no manipulation. My father nodded slowly. We understand. I don't know if I can trust you, I admitted. Trust takes time. We have time, my mother said quietly. If you'll allow it. I looked at Amy, who gave a small nod. We can start small, I conceded. Perhaps you could meet Lily. Just a short visit. As they prepared to leave, my father paused. For what it's worth, Sophia, we're proud of what you've accomplished. The words I'd once desperately wanted now felt bittersweet. After they left, Amy and I sat in silence. Do you think they mean it? She asked finally. I don't know, I admitted. People can change. Or at least, they can try to. Noah returned with Lily, who ran to us babbling excitedly about ducks in the park. As I lifted her, I realized something profound. The journey that began with rejection had led us here, to success, to love, to a family of our choosing. My parents might become part of that family again, or they might not. Either way, we would be okay. What happened? Noah asked, sensing the charged atmosphere. An ending, I said, watching Lily's bright face. And maybe a beginning. Whatever came next, we would face it together, stronger for having weathered the storm. That was the greatest victory of all.